Hi everyone. Hamas has been waging a psychological warfare against humanity, blackmailing everybody, using children, infants, babies, taking them hostages, using human shields, committing genocide, and still playing the victim, expecting from humanity to break and to meet with their demands, unrealistic demands. They want to release thousands of mass murderers back to the street in return for the Israeli hostages. Israel cannot afford this, but also humanity cannot afford this, because the release of mass murderers, putting them back on the streets, means the death of many other innocent people. And criminals, savages, terrorists must be punished. They cannot be rewarded for their violence. They should not be rewarded for killing innocent civilians. Hence, Israel must not compromise. I totally understand that Israel had to compromise in the past week or two in order to release children, women, elders, and defenseless civilians. The remaining hostages, especially soldiers, those who failed to defend themselves and defend the civilians in the southern communities when they were captured, should be treated as war prisoners. And Israel must shift its priority from a hostage rescue mission to an offensive that focuses on eradicating Hamas. Now we have children, we have infants, we have them back home to safety, and this is a great progress. But we cannot go on like this. Hamas is going nowhere. And if we continue to negotiate with them, they will continue stretching these negotiations, taking us into a rabbit hole that will never end. And this is their goal, to get away with their crime. And we cannot allow this to happen. There is no other option for us but to stand united, fight together until Hamas is eradicated, for the sake of Israeli children and for the sake of Palestinian children. Now, Israel has thousands of Hamas members in prison, and Israel must use this card. This is the time when Israel needs to use Hamas savages in prison to pressure Hamas leadership everywhere to release the hostages. We have mass murderers in prison, and they have all type of privileges and human rights. Israel cannot continue like this. Prisoners like Ibrahim Hamid, Abdullah al-Barghouthi must be sentenced to death. And Hamas must have a time frame, a month or 2 or 6 months, to return the hostages. And if they don't return the hostages within a time frame, Israel must execute top Hamas leaders in prison, especially the mass murderers. And when I say execute top Hamas leaders, I mean no exception. That includes my own father, the co-founder of Hamas movement. In this war, there are no exceptions. There is no difference between military wing and political wing. They are all partners in the crime. I made a mistake 10 or 15 years ago when I saved his life many times. I was going against evolution. He was supposed to die for his actions. I saved his life, and here we go. Things did not change. Things got worse. Hence, I give the Israeli government the permission to execute all Hamas top leaders in prison before we go after them in Gaza and before we go after them in Qatar. And again, I make myself very clear. No exception for anyone. All those who conspired, planned, validated, justified Hamas genocide must be punished. And if this is what Hamas want, the release of those mass murderers, then in my opinion, this is the head of the snake. And the head of the snake at this moment is not in Qatar and it's not in Gaza. It's in the Israeli prisons. If Israel know how to manage and how to play this card against Hamas, I guarantee you the return of all the hostages and the defeat of Hamas. Then we have Qatar and we have Hamas based in Qatar. We should not consider Qatar as a mediator, as a fair third party, as long as they host Hamas leadership and Hamas operation in Qatar. Up to this point, they functioned as a mediator, and that gave us what we wanted, what we needed, the release of children. And this is a great progress up to this point. But from now on, Qatar should be treated as an enemy state as long as they host Hamas leadership on their soil. Israel must make this very clear to the Qataris and to the rest of the world that as long as Qatar keep Hamas base in Doha, Israel will have the right to go after Hamas leaders on the Qatari soil. Qatar must have a time frame within a month to expel Hamas leaders from Qatar. If they don't obey, Israel is not under any obligation to carry an attack or to carry an assassination on the Qatari soil targeting Hamas criminals. Then the front in Gaza. I recommend from this point on to reduce the fire and to concentrate the fire that is going to target mostly Hamas and Hamas leaders. We should not be under pressure that we have to accomplish this operation in Gaza within any time frame. Even if Israel would consider an announced ceasefire, then this is fine, as long as Israel is watching every move Hamas does on the ground. Wherever they go, whenever they surface, that there is a missile coming from heaven that is going to hit them very hard. So the target and the concentration must be Hamas in Gaza. I know Israel has avoided targeting civilians, but at this stage, we try even more carefully and we be more precise in our targets. These are the 3 recommendations that I would like to see for the next phase of war in order to defeat Hamas movement. Hostages, we cannot be weak right now. Hamas prisoners, we have to play this card very well. Qatar, we cannot accept them as mediators anymore. We should replace them with Egypt or Saudi Arabia even. And our targets in Gaza must concentrate on Hamas and on Hamas alone. Thank you.